Hi everybody, I'm Bill Wiesner, founder of TCFamily.org and TCFamily Media. Welcome to our exclusive 30-minute interview with Dr. Scott Lively and our extensive 30-minute overview on our local 36-plus street outreaches since our last Ray Comfort Christmas Gone Viral show. Hi everybody again, I'm Bill Wiesner, TCFamily.org founder. Tonight we'll start with our 30-minute exclusive interview with Dr. Scott Lively. By the way, Dr. Lively is currently running for governor in his home state of Massachusetts, where he got nearly 1/3 of the delegates at the Republican convention in April, and I sure hope he wins. Then we'll use the final 30 minutes to highlight just a few of the at least 36 outreaches that I will reference that we've had since the first of the year. We'll also see 3 things which I agree with our self-identified homosexual mayor, Jim Carruthers, TCAPS board members voting to pass their dangerous sex ed curriculum, and an Up North Pride picnic at F&M Park, where a man used fascist tactics to try to silence my passing out flyers. Plus, 3 different attacks on my sign and my body cam during the Michael Moore Traverse City Film Festival, along with video from some of our local street outreaches. But for now, I hope you enjoy our 30-minute exclusive interview with Dr. Scott Lively from August of 2017. Dr. Lively, we sure appreciate you coming back to Traverse City, 4th time I think, and this time you spoke again at Church of Philadelphia Sunday morning and Sunday evening at Harbor Light Christian Center, Pastor Peter Moon, and we're so thankful you've come and taught us so much and on how to fight on this issue, and thank you for this opportunity for a question and answer, which we will be playing on Up North Media. So
wonderful.
All right, and my first question, a friend who I saw yesterday in front of the State Theater while the Traverse City Film Festival movie Michael's Surprise was showing, said to me, "You know," speaking to me, "Bill, I've told you before, you know I disagree so much with the stuff you are doing, but you're always such a nice guy. Again, I don't agree with you, but again, I've got to hand it to you. I don't know anybody else as dedicated as you. I've never seen anybody so dedicated to something. What keeps you going in this? You know, I'm sure that you get so many people disagreeing with you. What keeps you going?" Scott, here's the question. How would you answer this kind gentleman? You have many more times in this cultural fight than I do. I mean, you spent all your life. I have answers that I have for this young man, but what would you say keeps you going, or what should keep us all going and standing up and speaking out and sharing truth and love on this issue? Why is it so important to speak and act on this issue?
Well, I'm coming from a biblical worldview. I do what I do because I'm a Christian, because the Lord has given me this particular task of standing for His truth regarding sexuality and marriage, family, and I want to be faithful to that calling, and because there are very few other people doing that in this culture today. So, for me, it's part of my core Christian values.
Okay, good. Thank you. And second one here. It would be very helpful when the TC Family and other pro-family groups and Christians in general are out on the street sharing with people or simply with other families and friends how we could accurately summarize the fight that we are in. And yesterday you spoke at the Traverse City Church of Philadelphia's morning service. You said something that really caught my attention in summarizing our cultural condition when you said something like this. We are in a cultural war that boils down to this: the homosexuals versus the Christians. Could you again explain this concept and how it is important for us to understand the basics of this battle that we are fighting?
Well, the culture war, what we call the culture war, and that was actually a phrase coined by Pat Buchanan years ago. It really comes down to a clash of value systems. The biblical view that sex belongs inside of marriage, and that's from Genesis 1:27 and 2:24. We're created in the image of God, two complementary halves of one whole. And 2:24 says, therefore shall a man leave his family and cleave unto his wife, and they will become one flesh. And that is that's the foundation of civilization. It's the heart of family and community. And that is the biblical view of sexuality. All sex belongs in the context of marriage. Well, the cultural Marxist challenge to biblical Christianity promotes the idea of so-called sexual freedom, which is really sexual anarchy, and the idea that there should be no limitations on sexual behavior except for the principle of mutual consent. That is a philosophy that was articulated by Herbert Marcuse of the Frankfurt School. It's a Marxist, a branch of Marxism. And I don't think Marcuse was a homosexual himself, I don't know. But the idea that he came forward with, this idea that we should transform sexual morality in Judeo-Christian society, was embraced by the gay movement beginning in the late 1940s. Harry Hay was a teacher of Marxism for years before he formed the first lasting homosexual organization. And so it's the gay movement that really has provided the army of activists whose goal has been the transformation of sexual morality, including starting with heterosexual promiscuity in order to be able to change the culture so that homosexuality itself could be accepted. So whenever you're dealing with any culture war battle, whether it's abortion, pornography, no-fault divorce, contraception, all of these things, even though you don't recognize gay activists necessarily in the front lines of those battles, it's that army of activists that has actually they've been driving that culture war for all these years. So that's why I say the culture war really comes down to a battle between Christians and homosexuals.
And it gets all the like pornography introduced, and so everybody goes along with it. But it's the homosexuals that are driving force.
Well, if you look back and you trace the change of the culture in terms of our law and popular culture, really the biggest force after World War II was Alfred Kinsey. Alfred Kinsey published Sexual Behavior in the Human Male in 1948. He had adopted Marcusean radicalism, this idea of eliminating the natural family and freeing people from what he called the repressive order of procreative sexuality. Kinsey really put the science behind that. It was fraudulent studies, but he gave it a scientific sort of backing. And then right on the heels of that, he was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. He went all over the United States promoting this idea that to young men, which is the audience most willing and most interested in hearing the idea that you don't have to be married to have sex, and that actually it's harmful to society to repress your natural sexual inclinations, and therefore promiscuity is actually good for society. That was what Kinsey's message was. On the heels of Kinsey came Hugh Hefner, who called himself Kinsey's pamphleteer, who really launched the modern porn industry. Pornography had been around forever, but the industry that you now all recognize, the multi-billion-dollar global porn industry, that was really Hugh Hefner that did that. As a, he put pictures to the, to the prose, to Kinsey's prose.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. TCFamily's, the third question here, TCFamily's two most recent flyers are the myth of the LGBTQ ally. We've given out like 5,000. The fake LGBTQ movement, how it deceives those with same-sex attraction, their so-called allies. We've given over 7,000. In these handouts, we purposely try to point out that the LGBTQ allies, in quotes, even though they may be very well intentioned, are not really showing love to those with same-sex attractions when they celebrate homosexual behavior. Here's a question then. If you had an auditorium full of non-same-sex attracted allies to the LGBTQ movement who, for some reason, had to listen to you for 30 minutes talk, summarize what you would share with them.
Well, you have to sort of understand what it is that attracts people to defending homosexuals and advocating for their position, even though they themselves are not dealing with this particular dysfunction. And it comes down to, the whole theme of social justice, right? Once again, this, social justice is a Marxist philosophy. The idea that that you can divide all of society up into victim groups, or oppressors and the oppressed, and that the victim groups need advocacy for social justice. And so this would be, the whole list of the civil rights laws, people based on skin color, race, ethnicity, religion, even disability, all of these. And that the social justice warrior, the person who, even without knowing it, is advocating this Marxist way of thinking, feels that they have to protect the oppressed from the oppressors. Well, going back to the 1960s, the homosexuals were presented as a victim class, the need to be protected from societal persecution, and that was simply adopted as a part of the leftist mindset. And that's really who these people are. The so-called allies are people that have bought into cultural Marxism and the social justice army. And they're really foot soldiers in the social justice army. And they think they're doing right. Mm-hmm. But what happens is, there's a big difference between skin color. There's the genuine persecution that black people experienced, right? And the thing of it is, having black skin is completely morally neutral, right? There's nothing, the fact that your skin color has nothing to do with the content of your character, as Martin Luther King Jr. Talked about. But homosexuality is not morally neutral. In fact, it's a profoundly defining voluntary behavior, and that it has a serious negative physical, psychological, emotional, and societal implications. And so, getting people to be social justice warriors in defense of people who define themselves as victims, when the basis of their supposed victimhood is harmful voluntary behavior in which they're damaging themselves, right, and they're damaging society as a whole. That's just simply backward thinking. If you really want to help somebody who struggles with same-sex attraction, you just love them for being a human being. Don't affirm their choice of harming themselves and robbing themselves of genuine health and wholeness. Right.
So to be a protector is a good thing, but make sure you're protecting. I mean, if it takes like 8 to 20 years off your life, if you're protecting that lifestyle, that's really not protecting them.
Well, I just asked the question. Would you have the same attitude toward alcoholics? Right.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with someone who's struggling with a problem of voluntary drinking, right? No alcoholic is compelled to do it. It's still, even though inside they feel a compulsion, they're the ones who's voluntarily drinking. It's the same thing with sexual addiction. There may be a compulsion to do it, but still it's a voluntary choice to climb into bed with somebody. Would you take the same attitude toward a person who's drinking, who has an alcohol problem?
Yeah.
No. You'd be able to separate the person from the conduct and affirm the one and disapprove the other.
Yeah, usually with alcoholism, it seems like they try to not give them money because they might abuse it.
Sure,
but
yeah.
With this, the homosexual issue,
yeah,
they're doing the same thing, harmful.
They just aren't recognizing,
right,
they're not able to translate the ability to affirm a person without their behavior it doesn't seem to be able to do that from one category to the other. And large part because they believe homosexuals are born that way, that they have no choice in the matter, but clearly they do. And they don't, mostly would not affirm adulterers, people who have entered into a pledge, made a vow to stay faithful to another person. A man who breaks his vow to his wife is acting on a biological impulse that he's born with, right? He's born to have sexual desire, and that he's violating his vows by committing adultery. What's the difference with a homosexual? Why should a person who has same-sex attraction get a free pass to indulge their perversion when it's easy to say, no, I don't support adultery, right? Once again, there's a double standard when it comes to homosexuality, that all of the logic that you would follow in all the analogous forms of behavior just never seems to jump the gap.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just one follow-up question. If you had, and maybe it's the same answer, now you have an auditorium full of same-sex attracted people, how might your answer compare and contrast with what you shared with just the allies of the group?
Well, now you're dealing with people who are the ones who are experiencing the same-sex attraction. And here it's really helpful to use the acronym SAD, right? Because it's the truthful alternative to the word gay, right? It's not gay. It was a euphemism that was adopted to sort of cover up the dysfunctional nature of the behavior. SAD stands for same-sex attraction disorder, and that's what it is. That's what it's always been. Every person on this planet, with the exception of people that are born with a birth defect, a physical deformity of both sets of genitalia, which is not normal. It's not. No one says that they're intended to have that by God, or that it's normal. It's a birth defect. But everybody else on the planet is either male or female genitalia. That sexuality, the sexuality of human being, or of every human being, is rooted in the fact they have a reproductive system that's either male or female. It's self-evident to any 7-year-old who is aware of physiology that male and female reproductive genitalia is designed to be complementary to each other, and that the fact is that no one would have any sexual impulse if it weren't for the fact that they had hormones related to their reproductive system, right? So in other words, we are designed as heterosexual beings with the capacity to engage in any one of a number of different forms of sexual deviance, including same-sex behavior. And a person who's struggling with same-sex attraction is just simply being tempted to do something that their body was not designed to do, for whatever reason, usually often because of family dysfunction of some kind. That the temptation to indulge in that behavior can be resisted. And there are many people, and as a matter of fact, young people, as many as 25% of young people are confused at the age of puberty about their sexuality. And they've shown this through studies, that as long as they're not encouraged to indulge in homosexuality, the vast majority of them naturally just simply grow out of that confusion and enter into normal heterosexual relations. But if a young person actually indulges in same-sex context, in same-sex behavior of any kind, and they experience, which is really the most powerful drug known to man, that the association with that sexual behavior, with that effect in the brain, can actually tip them to make them begin to self-identify as homosexual. I did this thing in experimentation. I had this sensation, and therefore I must be gay. And you don't have to be gay. You can change. You can be delivered from that. Many people have. Our society is full of ex-gays, and don't believe the lie that you're born that way and you can't change.
Okay, good. Fourth question here. Our local Human Rights Commission is very active in promoting the homosexual issue here in Traverse City. Could you share the history of the Human Rights Commission like groups that you have shared starting up with in the past? I've heard of many tapes. Starting up in Germany and then spreading to America, and then I've got.
Yeah, I got enough to answer. That question.
Okay.
The first human rights organization was actually associated with the Nazi Party in Germany. The number 2 Nazi, Ernst Röhm, was the head of the Sturmabteilung, the stormtroopers. He was the most prominent member of the German Society for Human Rights after World War I. And the very first homosexual organization, now the one Harry Hayes started in, later on, lasted, but the first one didn't last. It was the American chapter of the German Society for Human Rights. It was formed by a German-American soldier who, after World War I, was in Germany for a while. That was formed in Chicago when was that? 1924, I think. And it only lasted for a little while. Henry Gerber was his name. He and the 2 other men that formed this were actually arrested within a few weeks for having sex with boys, and the organization was disbanded. That was the first. Now, the modern phenomenon of promoting homosexuality as a civil rights category really got kick-started in the late 60s and early 1970s. And they started putting through anti-discrimination policies based on sexual orientation. In other words, to try to get minority status, civil rights minority status, based on sexual conduct.
These are human rights commissions?
These are human rights commissions. The human rights commissions were formed for that purpose. Now, they were ostensibly formed to deal with all civil rights, but what they were really doing, this was driven by the gays, and they were bundling all the legitimate human rights categories, blacks and other minorities, etc., in order to be able to package their goals, their political goals, and make it part of a slate. So from now on, you have to think, whenever you think of civil rights minority status based on skin color, you have to believe that it extends to sexual orientation or sexual conduct, really, because orientation is just a euphemism for a lifestyle based upon the practice of sodomy. So the first really major fight over these Human Rights Commission policies, these anti-discrimination policies based on sexual orientation, are really, it's the seed that contains the entire tree of the homosexual agenda with all of its poisonous fruit. Once it goes into the ground, because it creates the legal presumption that disapproval of homosexuality is morally and legally wrong, right? Because that's the purpose of these things. After that, on what basis can you oppose anything else that they want to do? Because as soon as you open your mouth, you're discriminating, quote unquote. So remember Anita Bryant back in 1977. That was the first real major battle in the public. And they vilified Anita Bryant. They attacked her viciously. What was she doing? She was leading a campaign called Save the Children to repeal a human rights sponsored anti-discrimination ordinance based on sexual orientation.
Wow.
And so, and they swept across the country with these, and it's been their theme ever since, not just here, but all over the world.
So, in your opinion, it grew right out of the original purpose of those. Were there human rights
this is a
commission?
gay rights strategy. This is nothing else but a gay rights strategy.
So it started in Germany, and there weren't any human rights type commissions?
There's a big gap between what happened in Germany and what happened here in the United States later. But they do, the idea that homosexuality or that sodomy should be a human right is not new. And it grew out, it's always been associated with the gay movement, first in Germany, and then here in the United States and around the world.
All right. Good. Follow-up question, and maybe you've already covered it. I have to read it to figure it out. How much do you think that the local HRCs across the country, including ours, are working towards true civil rights? Well, I think we already did that one.
Well, I can say a couple more sentences about that. That, this is malfeasance. You know, it's this abusive process. When you have people that are either elected or appointed officials who are using a system to advance a hidden agenda, then that's malfeasance. And that's what these organizations are for. That their entire purpose is to advance a special interest political agenda. They hide behind legitimate minorities in order to advance the idea that homosexuality should be legitimized in society. And then to the extent that they get control of any kind of money, resources, community goodwill, they exploit all of those things as opportunists in order to advance something that's harmful to society. So yeah, that's what's happening here.
Yeah, sure.
Wherever there's a Human Rights Commission established, the purpose of its existence is to drive the gay agenda in that community.
Okay, here's just on that same question, a new take on it, and I'm not sure how to interpret it. Our local HRC has been promoting the idea of making Traverse City a sanctuary city. They have gotten pushback from the police department and many vocal people at their meetings. Now they seem to be backing off from this push. However, some feel that they are just slightly changing the wording to still get similar rights to sanctuary cities. Here's the question then. What is the significance of this push for sanctuary cities, and does it at all relate to the push for LGBTQ special rights?
Well, you have to remember that the left is made up of a collection of victim groups, right? That's the way the left operates. The Democratic Party, its entire grassroots is established on the premise, on the Marxist premise, that social justice warriors are necessary to defend the victims against the oppressors. And so the illegal immigrants is just another constituency of voters, right? That's what it's all about. That's why did they open the borders and allow all these? If the people being flooded into this country were conservative Republicans, right? Do you think that they would have allowed that they would be sanctuary cities around the United States? Absolutely not, right? This is all about politics. It's all about the leftist coalition building, and in line with that is also the phenomenon of the left promoting or campaigning against Islamophobia. It's the same sort of attempt to create another victim class, another category of victims that can then be part of their coalition, that they can all rally together to accomplish political objectives. But once again, that the litmus test for all these people is whether or not they support the gay agenda. That even the Muslims, once they get the Muslims wrapped up in their agenda, then they expect them to start advancing the gay cause. And they've been successful about this in Great Britain, for example, in the UK. Where it's the same people, really. It's just with a different flying a different flag. It's the same collection of victim categories. They now have actually gay Muslims that are actually sitting in public office in Britain. So, but anyway.
Okay, good. And just two closing quick questions if you have time for
Okay.
these. The first one is why, like I've handed out maybe, I don't know, over 15,000 of my flyers downtown at all the different venues, wherever the LGBTQ are there. I try to be there and just share the truth and love. And many of them take the handouts, obviously, with that many given out. But why do so many of, say, the Traverse City Film Festivals, people say no when offered a flyer? If it were me, if they offered me a flyer, I say, yes, I want that. I want to see if it's true or not. I want to check and see if there's anything false about it. Why would they even refuse some of them to look at it?
Well, you're responsible for what you know, and if you are holding on, the Bible talks about this in Romans chapter 1, and Romans 1:18 through 32. Every person should read that passage of the Bible to know what it actually says about homosexuality. And it begins the passage saying that they suppress the truth in unrighteousness. People suppress the truth in unrighteousness. In other words, they know because the truth is actually written on their heart by God before they're even born. They know what the truth is deep down, but they don't want to be accountable to the truth, so they suppress the truth and try not to think about it. And they know also really that you're accountable for what you know. So if you can continue to sort of put your fingers in then you can sort of maintain the facade. You can maintain the false reality that you're not accountable to the real truth. I think that's generally why people don't want to look deeper at this issue, because they know deep down that what the truth is, and they don't want to be reminded of it.
Yeah, and that's why I still continue to hold up the sign and offer them again if I see them another day. And I don't know, we got like about 1 minute left.
We'll try to slip a quick answer.
Yeah, a quick one here. And just think of the concerned people that might be watching this. I mean, we have people on both sides watching it, but the concerned pro-family people, traditional viewpoints out there, how do they fight to win this war individually themselves?
Well, people have to stand up. In fact, I'll just speak to the camera right here. People who have values, who understand the importance of the biblical guidance on sexuality and the natural family, have a duty to tell that truth and to stand up for what's right. And so I just want to encourage everybody that's listening. I want to thank you, Bill, for inviting me here. And I want to just speak to the community, just say that your community is your responsibility. And you shouldn't allow people who have a worldview that is contradictory to what you know is in the best interests of the community to dominate. Just simply stand wherever you are, speak the truth in love plainly and clearly. And thank you very much for watching.
Thank you, Dr. Lively.
Bye now.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Bill Wiesner, TCFamily.org founder. I hope you enjoyed the exclusive Dr. Lively interview. Now we'll simply list our 36+ street outreaches. First, the Traverse City Human Rights Commission meeting in January, Martin Luther King Day at the State Theater in January, at least 6 City Commission and Traverse City Area Public Schools, or TCAPS, meetings, 3 National Writers Series speakers, the Central United Methodist Church Reconciling Ministries Potluck in April, NMC Barbecue in May, WTCM Radio Telethon Boy Scout Outreach with updated flyer in June, 11 Up North Pride events in June, 3 National Cherry Festival parades and the Blue Angels show and the art show and the auto show in July, the July 23rd Michigan Civil Rights Commission meeting at the Grand Traverse Resort, where they lawlessly upheld their illegal mandate to add sexual orientation and gender identity to the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, and 6 days in August at the Michael Moore Traverse City Film Festival, which included 3 separate attacks on my sign, flyers, and body cam, and 1 Friday Night Live event in downtown Traverse City in August. Now let's watch a 2-minute clip at Up North Pride's Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 picnic at F&M Park. Take note in particular of Up North Pride's founder, Jen Cameron's predictable look of surprise when she reads the subtitle of our newest flyer, The Pink Swastika, How Homosexuals Invented and Ran Hitler's Nazi Party, which quotes a self-identified gay left-wing man, Johann Hari, writing in the Huffington Post, saying, "The twisted truth is that gay men have been at the heart of every major fascist movement that ever was, including the gay-gassing, homicidal Third Reich, and that Adolf Hitler and his Gestapo head, Ernst Röhm, were the founding fathers of Nazism." We've handed out over 3,000 of these flyers so far this summer. This clip also shows a man who is very much for promoting homosexual sexual freedom equals sexual license equals sexual anarchy, and against Christian exclusively heterosexual one-man, one-woman marriage as God ordained it, trying to silence my free speech similar to free speech that was silenced by the fascists in World War II Germany. And note that he repeatedly mentions that TC Family is on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list map. he should know that the Southern Poverty Law Center paid, just recently, in the last couple months, paid $3.4 million to a simple demand letter from a man they slandered, just like they slander so many other pro-family groups that I admire. Now here's that clip. Hi, Jim. You see I'm doing that?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. I might look at it. Actually, let me look at it later.
Help yourself, yeah. Hi.
I'm all set.
Okay, have a good time.
Judge not. Judge not.
LGBT affair or happening or event.
I tried.
I know, I can tell. Because every time I come, you're here.
I can't get into the schools where it's being promoted.
Lou is
Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are we casting stones right now?
What do you think?
I don't know.
Hate group. That's what you are. You are. Southern Poverty Law Center has you listed as a hate group.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're nationally known as a hate group.
I would be ashamed if I wasn't on it. I see some of my best friends are on that list.
I would imagine you do. Because you're a hate group.
Where the homosexual
You are a hate group,
went
dude.
into
You are a hate group.
FRC. A homosexual went in and tried to murder everybody. Who was the hateful one?
Not nervous, are you?
I'm not really.
Like your presence with these people makes them nervous. Because you are a hate group. You are Southern Poverty Law Center hate group. Do you know that? You said some of your friends are on that group. Like Nazis in the Klan? Are those some of your friends? Is that who your friends are? You still don't get it. The more time you spend with me, calling whoever, the more time you're not distributing your bullshit.
Now let's watch our self-identified homosexual mayor, Jim Carruthers, rightfully and admirably discourage drinking, smoking, and opioid use to teenagers. But at the same March 19, 2018 commission meeting, where he, along with Commissioners Shamrow and Howard, rightfully, individually, spoke out strongly against opioid use in our community, at the same time brazenly displaying rainbows, so-called We Are Traverse City bumper stickers, on their desktops, which ultimately sends the wrong message to the 10,000 TCAPS K-12 children and young adults, encouraging them to practice homosexual behavior, which takes 8 to 20 years off their average lifespan and causes 94% of the new HIV infections for 13 to 24-year-old young men. We now all need to encourage Mayor Carruthers to likewise be consistent and discourage high-risk homosexual behavior to the 10,000 TCAPS K-12 children through young adults. Here's that two-minute Mayor Carruthers video right now.
I would suggest that the citizens' health and welfare is something that we need to be responsible for and look out for. I'm supportive of this. I mean, I've been supportive of it all along. I've seen the ravages of smoking products on family. I have lost 2 members to smoking-related causes in my life. So yes, it's hit me personally, and this is a hard one for me because I've watched family members die this way. So I will be supporting the motion on the table. Underage drinking is a national public health issue with serious implications. It exacts a terrible toll on individuals and families and places a costly tax burden on the community at large for law enforcement, medical services. Consequences of underage drinking may include injury or death from accidents, unintended, unwanted, and unprotected sexual activity, academic problems, and drug use. Youth who start drinking before the age of 15 are 5 times more likely to develop alcohol dependency or abuse later in life than those who begin drinking at the age of 21. Alcohol use by young people is dangerous. The grave threat to their long-term development and well-being. Because of this, I, Jim Carruthers, Mayor of the City of Traverse City, am committed to preventing underage drinking and do hereby proclaim that April 2018 is Social Host Responsibility Month. From 2013 to 2015 in Grand Traverse County, opiate overdoses were responsible for more deaths than traffic accidents and the same number of deaths as firearms. This is not only a problem here in Traverse City and Grand Traverse County, but across the state of Michigan and the entire country. So this is sort of an action that we are doing something about this, and we're trying to do something about it. So we're going to move forward and see how it goes.
As I just read from Dr. Lively's The Petros Prophecy, that one of the end times signs would be to put emotionalism above truth, or to basically ignore the truth in making decisions. Do you remember Up North Pride co-founder Jen Cameron's look of shock when she read the subtitle to our newest flyer, The Pink Swastika? If our decisions were rightly being based on truth, then that same look of shock would be appropriate when we see that every basic building block of the homosexual movement is false or fake. As the back of our fake LGBTQ movement sign, street signs states, fake civil rights, After the Ball Gay Manifesto book, science, 1973 APA decision, and you can add one more. The pink swastika shows that homosexuals invented and ran Hitler's Nazi Party, as we've already discussed. It also mentions fake safety, which brings us to the last TCAPS school board meeting, when board president Eric Faulkner mentioned their relief of just passing a 10-year, $107 million bond proposal. And he said, now we will be able to take care of safety and security needs. Yet, when I spoke 3 times before their May 7th vote to pass the TCAPS sex ed curriculum, warning that it's 44 times more likely to get HIV from homosexual male sex versus heterosexual sex, and that this extreme risk is nowhere mentioned in their 57-page curriculum, they ignored the Center for Disease Control facts showing the extreme risk, and instead changed the subject to stress that it is an, quote, abstinence-based curriculum. A lawyer friend of mine instead accurately defined it as a selective promiscuity curriculum. Then at their July 23rd program, I handed each school board member the CDC printout showing 94% of all new HIV cases for 13 to 24-year-old TCAPS age students come from homosexual sex, male sex. And only one of the board members chose to even take the handout home. All the others were returned to me. So, at the August 13th, by a secretary there, she returned them, the ones that were left. So at the August 13th meeting, I gave out the same handouts again and said that I agreed with school board president Eric Faulkner that with the $107 million bond passing, that they should now focus on school safety and security. And the best way to do that is to discourage all high-risk homosexual behavior to all 10,000 TCAPS students under their care. Now we'll play the clip from the May 7th meeting where they dodged the real question of student safety and replaced it by stressing that their comprehensive or abstinence plus curriculum is abstinence-based, even though it really reads like it is promoting selective promiscuity to the 10,000 TCAPS K through 12 students. Here's that clip.
They bring it back to the board. Any comments on the board?
Are there, I don't know, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it that thoroughly. So, I mean, are there, does it give statistics in terms of raw data, et cetera? Can you, just in terms of the what Mr. Weaver was talking about.
Can you come up to the podium, please?
The data in terms of, you know, statistically speaking, I guess, how does the curriculum address this particular topic in terms of the data that's given?
I think I can answer that, Deb. It's an abstinence-based curriculum. abstinence-based. So what it's trying to relay is abstain, period. Abstain. It's not promoting, it's abstinence-based. For everyone. For everyone, regardless. Abstinence-based.
Oh, there you go.
Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes.
In 1989, Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen wrote their gay manifesto book entitled After the Ball: How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s. On pages 200 and 201, they mention 5 basic media sources: television, radio, magazines, newspapers, and outdoor, which means billboards. And what is their number one choice? They say it is television, including most dramatically movies on the Michael Moore Film Festival big screens. First, because its breadth of audience is unparalleled, and second, because it's the most graphic and intrusive medium for our message. Moreover, quote, television is the most cogent or persuasive medium, combining sight, sound, and motion to make new pictures so vivid that they can displace the old. And on page 153 of After the Ball, they write that the homosexual agenda can succeed by conversion of the average American's emotions, mind, and will through a planned psychological attack in the form of propaganda. That's what's hitting our students, propaganda, to the nation via media. And on pages 136 and 137, they share that, first, arguments with facts are a waste of time. Is that what you want for your kids? No logical arguments? And 2, reasons won't persuade. Only emotional appeal works. So, in Michael Moore's 2018 Film Festival, there are at least 31 movies and panels that promote the homosexual sexual ethic equals sexual license equals sexual anarchy over God's biblical one man and one woman marriage for life, established by God for our protection and well-being. My first concern was Michael's opening greeting on page 3, where he writes, quote, "We bring you this year's festival in a time where millions find themselves full of anxiety, stress, despair, and an uncertain trepidation of what lies ahead. So, let's turn to the movies to find a much-needed inspiration, ideas, tears, joy, hope, and a way forward, ready for the glorious fight ahead." End quote. Sounds like a rallying cry to me to promote the homosexual sexual freedom ethic movement to the 10,000 Traverse City area public schools TCAPS children. Now, I just reread Michael's 2010 Film Festival welcome from 8 years ago, 2 years after President Obama was elected. And there was no mention of anxiety, stress, despair, and uncertain trepidation going on, although I felt quite a bit of that back in 2010. One thing was the same, though. In his 2010 letter, Moore wrote, "This year's festival is a brazen, incendiary celebration of cinema that is not afraid to take risks, to challenge the conventional wisdom, to move an audience so profoundly that everyone feel," there's that feeling, "transported to a place where it's safe to think and explore and rebel. Explore and rebel. Compare that to this year's similar 2018 Michael Moore welcome. Quote, "Try something new. Go where you're afraid of going. Take a walk on the wild side." This fits right in, end quote. This fits right into the third step of Kirk and Madsen's 3 steps to change from the protection of a biblical sexual ethic to the homosexual sexual freedom equals sexual anarchy or sexual license ethic. First, desensitizing. Second, jamming people like me and others who stand up against this. And third, conversion. Again, by conversion of the average, here's quote, by conversion of the average American's emotions, mind, and will through a planned psychological attack in the form of propaganda to the nation via media, i.e. the 2018 Michael Moore Film Festival. This Kirk Madsen propaganda technique is how you get an entire TCAPS school board to vote to promote, instead of rightfully and dutifully discouraging high-risk homosexual behavior to K-12 students under their care. We need to get our out homosexual mayor, Jim Carruthers, rightfully condemning how he rightfully condemns smoking and drinking and opioids to the K-12 students, while at the same time encouraging high-risk homosexual behavior to those same students. That's why I was at the 2018 Michael Moore Traverse City Film Festival for all 6 days after I got out of work each day, to try to counter with at least one voice the at least 31 sessions promoting homosexual sexual license equals anarchy movement to TCAPS K-12 children. We were pleased in America to have the freedom, and I would add the duty, to share biblical and true historical viewpoints, including those from our last 3 flyers, for a full 60 minutes outside Central Grade School to the approximately 700 moviegoers waiting in line for over an hour. For the Sunday, August 5th, Michael's Surprise movie.
We got 3 others that are good too. Wiesner.
Wiesner. You live here in town?
I'm sorry?
You live here in town?
Yes, I do, ma'am. So, folks, this is TCAPS Sex Ed curriculum in process. By the way, the spray paint was from someone at the film festival last night.
We're so bad for you. We're so
They make 180 films. They make 180 films. The one guy with the sign is too much for him, so we try to spray paint the sign.
And also, that same Sunday evening, we had opportunity to share with 15 or so high school and young college students, along with the challenging but reasonably argued 30-minute conversation with a man who helps manage both the self-identified homosexual Sidetracks bar and the very much pro-homosexual behavior Parlor Bar in Traverse City. It was a very enjoyable hour where I was able to share complete sets of our 4 most recent flyers, plus our various gospel tracts with 15 young adults who had seemingly been converted by Kirk Madsen's planned psychological attack in the form of propaganda via the media, to the nation via the media. Well, that's the message we share, and will continue to share to the greatest extent that is legally allowable. But there were 3 individuals who, like so many others, have fallen for Kirk and Madsen's planned psychological propaganda attacks, and mistakenly believe that they are being the good guys for standing up and promoting the homosexual sexual anarchy ethic and high-risk behavior to TCAPS children, rather than protecting biblical sexual ethic. They, along with so many others, have been duped and have fallen for Kirk and Madsen's psychological attack on page 183 of their After the Ball manifesto, which says, gays must be portrayed as victims in need of protection so that straights will be inclined by reflex to adopt the role of protector. There was a lot of reflexing going on during that film festival towards me. And even though Michael Moore had at least 31 events promoting the homosexual LGBTQ sexual ethic, they felt that they had the right, and I suppose misguided duty, to stop one voice speaking God's biblical and protecting truth. We have video of all 3 assaults and have reported all 3 to the police department and have asked that they be prosecuted to prevent this outrageous, though misguided, attempt to silence orderly and legal and true free speech in our community, Traverse City community. This first assault was by a young man in front of the State Theater on July 31st, 2018, which was the opening night party on Front Street for the film festival, where he violently knocked down all of my flyers, tried to break my sign over his knee, and then threw my sign into the street. Here's that clip now.
Have a good night. Franklin? You're a real piece of shit. This is an attack, sir. Oh, no, it's not. Go f*** yourself. Yeah. Open your mouth and real shit. Can I buy any chance you can fix?
The second assault was on Saturday, August 4th, 2018, on Park Street, where the people were lined up for the filmmakers' party when a young man spray-painted my sign that showed how TCAPS sex ed curriculum promotes high-risk behavior to K-12 children. And here's that clip.
Concerned about the Michael Moore film that's showing here too about the transgender. They call it conversion therapy. And they want to make laws so that if a kid like Matthew Shepard, who was sodomized as a young boy, they didn't tell you that in the news. I'm sorry? Oh. No. There's nobody over there. You're over here. So, anyway, we're very much concerned about that. It's adults saying that a kid who's been sexually molested can't see a counselor. That's assault, sir.
Out of here.
Okay.
Nobody wants that shit here.
Yeah.
Just go on the other side of the street. You don't listen, you're not invited. Go on the other side of the street.
And the last assault was by a man wearing a name tag of one of the managers of the Traverse City Film Festival. After he asks me if I have a video camera on me, he quickly grabs for the camera out of my front pocket. Note that this man is wearing the name tag of a manager of Michael Moore's Film Festival, which is showing at least 31 movies or panels that promote the homosexual sexual ethic. And I am the only one voice downtown promoting God's protective for our own good sexual ethic of God-designed and very good one man, one woman marriage. We each grabbed for my camera at the same time, and I wrenched it out of his hand and stuffed it into my pants pocket for protection. He then grabbed me by the front of my shirt and lectured me loudly for 5 to 10 seconds. Here's that clip.
You have a video camera on you?
Yeah.
What the f are you doing videoing people? You're gonna get dirty. See my wife on your website? I will sue your ass. You understand me? That's a violation of the fucking law. I'm looking for the police. I'm having you arrested tonight. That is a violation of the law. You're so fucking smart. Quiet. Yeah? Yeah.
Well, that's all for this show. We'll try to have our next show much quicker than the last Christmas Gone Viral show last seen. Then we'll show more videos from our 37th Street Outreaches this year. If you'd like to help in any way, please contact us at info@tcfamily.org. We could especially use some help with replacing our obsolete Microsoft front page web page software so that we can get our street outreach flyers online. Also, this show can be viewed on Up North Media, but will not be found on our TCFamily.org website until I can get the software updated. So if you like the movie, please share it extensively with as many people as possible. God's blessing to you all. Until next time, Godspeed to you.